What's going on, guys? Reed here. I'm gonna wait a few minutes to allow maybe one viewer to come in. To allow that one viewer to come in. You know. Let me send that to the students. Let me send this link out. Let a few people come on in. I'm gonna go from 0 to 1. I'm gonna start as soon as I get to 1. Uh-oh, that one viewer may be me. And we're going to talk about antidepressants today, mainly the mechanism of action of antidepressants. And, on the last series, I went over the mechanism of action of the different antipsychotic medications. And they're also called neuroleptics. So antipsychotics also called referred to as neuroleptics. And we went over those things. And remember, the antipsychotic medications are very helpful in the treatment of schizophrenia, right? And one of the symptoms of the reason you have positive symptoms of schizophrenia is because the mesocortical pathway is hyperactive, and that's a primary dopaminergic pathway. So we learn the neuroleptics, particularly the typical antipsychotics, have a very profound, predilection for the D2 receptor of that mesocortical pathway, and it blocks it. So antipsychotic medications are blockers, right? They block the dopamine channels, therefore reducing the transmission, the level at that, the amount of transmission that's happening on that network. The network isn't as active as it was before. So remember, those typical antipsychotics were very potent dopamine D2 blockades, and they were strictly focused mainly on that D2 blockade. You had other receptors like alpha adrenergic receptor, histamine, and cholinergic receptors, but those were minor population on that mesocortical pathway. It made sense. Mesocortical pathway hyperactive, just start blocking the receptors. We block the receptors with antidepressants, also start neuroleptics. Remember the difference between the typical antidepressant antipsychotics and the atypicals, that the atypical have more of a receptor binding profile. So they bind the D2 receptors, they also bind D1 receptors, and they also have an affinity for serotonergic, 5-HTS2, something like that, serotonergic receptors. And also norepinephrine, alpha adrenergic, cholinergic, and muscarinic receptors. So remember, the atypical category of neuroleptics target a broader category of receptors, and so they're more likely to be useful in a range of disorders, such so the atypicals have the indication for schizophrenia and for bipolar disorder, right? But the typical medications were just really focused on the D2 receptors. So here we're going to look at the mechanism of action of SSRI. Let me see. Yeah, let's look at all of them at the same time. Let's be brave. Okay, what we got going on here? So, let's see what I have here. So, I'm going to start off with just Google. All right, and let's look at all. We have the different types of antidepressants: SSRIs, SNRIs, NRIs, tricyclic antidepressants. You know, if there are more categories, I need to keep up. They probably came up, the last time I reviewed this, they probably came up with another category. So let me look here. See, okay. Okay, explain the different types of antidepressant medications, including brand and generic names. I just want to, I hope they put this in a list. Great. Antidepressants treat depression by altering neurotransmitters in the brain. We knew it, got that. There are 5 types. Okay, we have SSRIs, right? Okay, now let me go through the other one. Here it is here. Here's the breakdown. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. These only block the reuptake inhibitor of the serotonin on the receptor on the presynaptic cells. If you block the reuptake inhibitor, less of it get pulled back into the cell, more of it stays within in the synaptic cleft, and therefore it's available to bind and to assist in transmission. So if you turn off the reuptake pump, it does not take the serotonin back up into the cell. It leaves it out there. It builds up its titer, and then you can get increased transmission. So these are the medications that only target that one pump. These target both serotonergic and noradrenergic receptors. All right. Cymbalta effects, or okay. And then tricyclic antidepressants. Now, these tricyclic antidepressants are very helpful. I use them all the time. Geez, they're very helpful. Because sometimes, you know, if a person comes with you with some type of depression and you don't know what neurotransmitter is mediating it, right? And then think about some things like this. Imagine that mesocortical pathway hypoactivity creating negative symptoms of schizophrenia. And those symptoms seem to be consistent with the symptoms of depression. How do you sort between the person have a depression versus the depression or the symptoms that are cluster of symptoms that are exactly like depression, but treated by the negative stages of the schizophrenia? I mean, this is something that I struggle with every day. How do I separate those with those tricyclic antidepressants? They're very useful. So look at how they work. They're an older class that also increase serotonin and norepinephrine. Oh, but much less calm. I don't want to say that because I was going to say something else nice about it. Anyway, the SSRIs only target serotonin. The SNRIs only target serotonin and norepinephrine. But the tricyclic antidepressant hits 5 different receptors. And if I don't know, if I start off with an SSRI, and if you start to increase it, and the patient's not getting any benefit or they plateau, then I'm thinking maybe that depression is mediated by something else other than serotonin. And so, what do you augment it with? Do the SNRI? Yeah, sure, right? But I think that the norepinephrine component of those medications isn't as strong as the tricyclic antidepressants. And so they get potent affinity across the receptors. And so because they target different receptors, I'm bound to hit if we lock down the serotonergic pathway with the SSRIs, then if I add a tricyclic antidepressant, I'm likely to hit that second pathway that may be contributing to it. And me treating these patients, they open the mood improves significantly from that point. And so thank God for tricyclic antidepressants. And then they're very useful at night for sleep too. Like, yeah. So I use Remeron a lot, Elavil. I don't get a chance to use Pamelor. I think I used Pamelor maybe 3 or 4 times in 25 years. And here are MAO inhibitors. Let's look at this, how they work. They block the enzyme called monoamine oxidase, which breaks down neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. And so these can have a lot of side effects, and they have a lot of drug interactions. So yeah, due to potential drug interactions, dietary restrictions. So you want to be careful with patients taking MAO inhibitors. All right. And then they have these atypical antipsychotics here. You know, they I don't know why they the newer stuff classify Desiril, Trazodone, and Remeron as atypical antidepressants as opposed to tricyclic antidepressants. And then Wellbutrin is an NRI. It targets norepinephrine and dopamine. And norepinephrine, and Wellbutrin is a very effective antidepressant. I've experienced a lot of effectiveness in males, not females, but in males, particularly if you want to avoid any type of sexual side effects. So you stay away from serotonin due to likely serotonin side effects, and you can go to Wellbutrin's a pretty good antidepressant for males. I really never started in women. My patients didn't respond to it as well. So here are the different categories of it. Just the ones strictly SSRIs: Prozac, Paxil, Celexa, Lexapro, Zoloft. Okay. SNRI, Cymbalta, Effexor, XR. Okay, then we have our tricyclic antidepressants. And, very seldom do I go to MAO inhibitor. Very seldom. I think I use them like twice. But that's not my population I mainly treat. Okay, so here, firstly, so this is our overview of the antipsychotic antidepressants. Let me look at the mechanism of action for SSRIs. This AI is amazing because I think instead of going through reading stuff, which you may attach to or not, you can zoom in and focus on the area that you're most interested in and sort of learn it from that perspective and then zoom out. So let me explain the mechanism of action for SSRI antidepressants with the focus on the intracellular pathways. I want to see how these receptors are downregulated and things like that, because ultimately that's what needs to happen if you want to get any change. Antidepressants, they behave differently. the end product of the antidepressant is remodeling the synaptic cleft. And so it takes at least 2 weeks for that molecular machinery to sort of take place. And so when you give an SSRI, it ultimately results in a modification of the surface of the postsynaptic receptor. So, and don't quote me on the numbers, but let's say that before a severe depression, let's say you look at the postsynaptic receptor and you may see 1 million serotonin receptors, right? And they have to turn off the SSRI pumps in order to increase the amount of titer within the synaptic cleft in order to bind 80% of those receptors in order to get the signal across. But when you get the when you start blocking those receptors, it results in the down-regulation of the receptors. And so you simply don't have as many. So instead of going from 100,000 receptors, you may go back down to 10,000. I don't know. But anyway, you decrease the total number of receptors on that postsynaptic cell surface. And now you can reach the threshold for 80% occupancy. And now you can get traffic along that network. So you're given an SSRI and you want modification of the postsynaptic surface. And you want changes in those receptors, and it's the changes in the receptors that the remodeling takes around 2 weeks. And so that's why when you give an antidepressant to one, you tell them, hey, it's going to take around a couple of weeks for this to work because it's going to have to go through a bunch of remodeling from the inside out, from the brain cells and cells. Things have to be remodeled so that you can feel better. So let me see here. We'll see. Okay, let's see. So mechanism of action of SSRIs focus on intracellular pathways. SSRIs primarily exert their effect by blocking the reuptake of serotonin into the presynaptic neuron, right? Via the serotonergic transporter. This initial action increases the availability of serotonin in the synaptic cleft. So remember, on the serotonin is released from let me put an image of the brain cell. Show me if you have a synaptic cleft. Oh, okay. This is great. This is great. Let me be more specific. Let me synaptic cleft. Oh man, this is amazing. Let me bookmark this. Yeah, let me bookmark this page. Synaptic cleft illustrations. Synaptic cleft serotonin. It's a free trial. Let me just try and do it once for free and get up out of here. Okay. All right. Okay. Here's the presynaptic cell here. All right. Here's the presynaptic cell. It's not really showing the cleft, but anyway, you have the receptors that are located on this presynaptic cell. So let's say the red things, when the red neurotransmitter is out here, there's another receptor that pulls it back in. And so that would be a reuptake receptor. Now, the one specifically for serotonin, the SSRIs, it blocks this receptor. And so you get a buildup of these red balls if this were serotonin in that space. And so because you get a buildup of this titer in the space, then more of the receptors are occupied. And therefore, because we have more occupied receptors, then we can get the signal across. So that's what I'm talking about there. Okay, so the synaptic cleft is the small gap between the two neurons. The presynaptic and postsynaptic neurons, where chemical signals called neurotransmitters are transmitted from the sending neuron to the receiving neuron, which happens to be in the area of the diagram. Okay, so where was I here? Okay, I think I was here. Okay, however, the full antidepressant effects of SSRIs is not immediate, suggesting the primary action on the serotonin transmitter is not the whole story. So they're saying that simply blocking the transmitter doesn't lift the symptoms of depression. I think they're going on to say the long-term changes in the postsynaptic receptor. Rather, it appears that the long-term adaptive changes involving intracellular pathways are necessary for the full therapeutic effect. It may take several weeks to materialize. Because you're going to have to get expression from the cell to redesign the surface of the postsynaptic receptor in order to improve the transmission across that serotonergic network. And you're going to need to make the serotonergic network more active, not hypoactive, if you want to lift the symptoms of depression. So here's the breakdown of the intracellular pathway involved in SSRI antidepressant action. Okay, so first, desensitization of the H1 autoreceptors. Then number 2, modulation of G protein receptors and downstream signaling. And then 3, beyond serotonin. While SSRIs are primarily known for their serotonergic effect, other neurotransmitter systems also seem to be directly impacted interaction between serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, boom, boom, boom. Okay. Important of chronic treatment. Okay, so these two are not really as important here. Okay, desensitization of the H1. See, we're on the mesocortical and the mesolimbic pathway, they're primarily serotonin H2 receptors. And here, this H1 receptors, okay, desensitization of the H1 receptor. Why don't they have the H2 receptor? Okay, initial effects of SSRIs. When SSRIs initially increase serotonin levels in the synapse, when SSRIs initially increase serotonin levels in the synapse, they also activate 5-HT1A autoreceptors located on the presynaptic neuron. This activation provides negative feedback, reducing the firing rate of serotonin neurons and thus blunting the initial cessation of serotonin release. Oh, okay, wow. Autoreceptors. So basically, it desensitizes the autoreceptors. Okay. Chronic administration. Over several weeks of chronic administration, these autoreceptors desensitize or downregulate. The desensitization removes the inhibitory feedback, allowing serotonin neurons to fire and more readily release the more serotonin into the synaptic cleft. Wow, so those 5-HT1A receptors serve as sort of like the brakes to prevent it from just doing too much. Yeah, this desensitization removes the inhibitory feedback, allowing the serotonin neurons to fire more readily and release more serotonin in synaptic cleft. This restored or increased serotonin applied by the uptake blockade is believed to be crucial in the delayed onset of the therapeutic effects. Okay, modulation of G protein coupled receptors and downstream signaling. Postsynaptic, downstream signaling, in a postsynaptic cell. Postsynaptic effects. The increased serotonin in the synapses then binds to various postsynaptic receptors. The increased serotonin in the synapse binds to several receptors. Most serotonin receptors, with the exception of 5-3, are G protein coupled receptors. They activate intracellular signaling cascades upon binding. See those when the serotonin targets when the molecule targets a serotonergic receptor on the postsynaptic cell, those are G proteins, and the G proteins go through the intracellular cascade and eventually there's usually a product produced by the cell body. And this is what we're talking about here. So in this activation of the second messenger system, this is the system that's going to take the message from the receptor and create a specific RNA specifically for that, whatever that's for. And those are going to be the specific instructions to the cell body to produce a product. And there's this process of activating and deactivating proteins, and that's what this second messenger system is. And after all these years, I still got to read it again. After all this year, I still got to read it again. Regulation of gene expression. Okay, CREB is a transcription factor, and its activation can upregulate the expression of various genes, including brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Okay, I don't know anything about that. Okay, so here we can see the intracellular mechanisms of serotonergic agents. And let me see if I can just pause now for a few questions. Okay, hey guys, how you? Nice to see you guys. Hey Micah, everybody, Hash, how's it going, guys? Okay, let me see here. We got this. Okay, Mohim, how's it going, buddy? Could the future antidepressants provide precision medicine or gene-based treatment? Precision medicine. This is precision medicine. This is a precision medicine. If you have a depression to target serotonin, that is precision medicine. I'm not sure if that'll apply in this situation. I think, I think going forward, I think we've reached the extent at which the healthcare organization as a structural institution can really help. I think in order to treat people, you have to prevent these things. So I think you teach people how to heal, how to behave, how to maintain boundaries, so they wouldn't need as much medications. And then gene-based treatment, all of this is gene-based treatment because the SSRI remember, because the serotonergic receptor is a G protein, and a G protein submit requests to the cell body to produce things that are then exported out of the cell. So that is gene therapy. Mohammed, hi buddy, how you doing? Okay. Umber, how's it going, buddy? In what situations would you choose an SNRI over SSRI for a patient with depression or anxiety? Okay, so you're worried for SSRIs. You're worried about weight gain and libido, right? And I don't get those. I didn't get that in SNRIs, possibly because it targets the norepinephrine receptor. Also, is considered to be weight neutral. Effects are in Cymbalta, primarily, and another medication, Prestique, is neutral. And I use it for those. And so for males who have to get an erection and maintain an erection for a reasonable period of time, I typically go with with Wellbutrin, which is primarily a norepinephrine and dopamine agent, because I can avoid the serotonin. And if I couldn't go there, then I'll go with the SNRI, Celexa, Cymbalta, Effexor, or Prestique for the males. And if I was worried about weight gain and libido, then I would switch to an SNRI. So it's important to sort of explain that, because in some patients, if they're tired and fatigued, you give them an antidepressant, they get even more tired, and then it interferes with their libido, and that's not good. And so we really have to, when you have a patient who's experiencing any type of depression, you're going to have to ask about intimacy and about if they're able to become aroused and engage with their partner. And you have to take that seriously. You have to take that very seriously, because they can have a significant impact on their relationship, and you don't want to have that type of impact on people's lives. So good question. So both of these are all helpful for depression and anxiety, but I'll be worried about weight gain and sexual side effects from SSRIs. Okay, hey Mohammed, how's it going, buddy? Why do antidepressants take so long to kick in? The postsynaptic serotonergic, norepinergic receptor, noradrenergic receptors, G proteins. And G proteins, they create the messenger RNA. The messenger RNA goes to the cell. It's a factory. So it's a ticket factory production system. It's going to result in either when that serotonin, when it binds to that receptor, it's going to either result in something being excreted from the cell right away, or ion or ligand gates opening up, and or sending the message to the nucleus to produce a product for export. If you look at that, it's an amazing organization for a factory. It's a molecular factory. I was reading that these G proteins are so specific that the position of one molecule, insignificant molecule, can alter the 3D configuration of the entire G protein, 7 subunit G protein structure. And that slight change is specific for something else. And it's amazing how these machines are able to figure out all of that, right? And then send that message to the nucleus that reads it and then produces it. And all of that intelligence is happening when the ligand meets the receptor. It's very interesting. So it has to produce a product. The cell has to undergo modification and change for you to get the benefits of the antidepressant. Hey, hi, Hash. How's it going? What role do dopamine and norepinephrine play in mood regulation? Let me tell you this. The dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin, these neurotransmitters are amazing. I think these may make up the 3 angels or something like that. It has to be something significant because these neurotransmitters, they have like feelings and attitudes associated with it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If you ever, patients with excessive dopamine. Okay, so patients with excessive dopamine, those stories sound like dopaminergic stories. The person is following me. I'm fearful. Oh my God. It's almost like a horror movie. It's almost like there's dread, there's worry, there's apprehension, and things like that. It reminds me of, I can't play The Shining on here. I was going to play The Shining on here. There's a scene in the scary movie where the killer is coming, and the music is and she's trying to get away, and she's scraping and all that stuff, and the music, and it just makes you feel like a dopamine story, right? That's how this narrative feels when you hear that there's something bad's going on. I'm in danger. Can you please help me right now? I'm in danger. All right. Now with like norepinephrine, it's a different story. Patients who come in with excessive norepinephrine, it's like they won the Super Bowl. It's like, hey, you just won the Super Bowl, and where are you going? I'm going to Disney World, Reed. I'm going to Disney World. Yeah. Right. It feels different. It feels different. So when the patients come in with certain certain energies and certain feelings, you get a good idea. You get a good idea of how these neurotransmitters are being expressed and the impact it's having on the person. Okay, let me see here. Felipe Furlan, what's up, buddy? Felipe's my guy. Hey, Doc. You're amazing, awesome that you bring this subject to talk about. Yeah, thank you so much, buddy. Felipe's head developer, and we've been working on a lot of very interesting. Felipe, when are you going to come on the show? Why are you texting behind the scenes? We're about to launch, I think just a product that's going to revolutionize healthcare. We have a lot of concerns about our patients and want to make sure our patients are treated well and want to make sure that they're treated with dignity and respect. right? And so we're building the tools to sort of help empower patients in this healthcare system, this brutal healthcare system. We're going to be launching our platform soon, online clinic, and we'll be also launching my AI. And so we are working very hard to finish these products so we can sort of bring them to the market. And so I'm sure our patients are going to be very proud of us when they see how hard we're working on their behalf to improve things with them, you know. So, I mean, I'm proud of these things that we're going to have. And right now, so I'm at the 35 minutes mark. I only wanted to keep these discussions for medications for students down to 20 minutes. I've already gone over. So I think that's all the questions I'll have for today. And if you are a patient out there, if you would like to be under my care, I recommend, if you're in Chicago, I recommend you be under my care because it's tough out there. It's awful out there. Um, you can always contact me directly if you need to be admitted to the hospital. Contact me and we can see about helping you get to the hospital that you want to, you feel comfortable at. And otherwise, it's a pleasure talking to everyone, and I'll call you guys later. Take care, guys. Ciao.